Hello everyone, this is Joanna the Medium. Thank you so much for visiting my channel, and for those of you who are regulars, welcome back. I hope you like these messages. I will keep the intro very brief. These are, as you know, your September messages. A lot of it was channeled at the very beginning. Interesting energies, to say the least. I think I've said this before, we're all going through transformations and a lot of it is coming up. There's a lot of educational information I feel in these messages. So even if you're one sign and you're drawn to another sign that you don't relate normally, you might want to listen and see if there is something for you there, because I feel like they kind of sprinkled tips all over the place that could be useful by anyone, regardless of which category they feel into, because these are life situations that Spirit talked about. Also, for additional information as far as longer term messages, I will put those links down for you below. They are on Vimeo. There is the 6-month projection from July until the end of this year, December 2018. Also, the 7-year Uranus videos are also there, and that's a 7-year projection, so it'll give you the big picture of what things will be like over the next several years. But the 6-month is much more potent, because it's only focused on the next 6 months or so. Of course, if you would like a private session with me, that information is down below. Thank you so much once again for liking, sharing, and subscribing. I always say, without you, I wouldn't do this. And what I do is something that I absolutely love. And I remind myself every single day how lucky I am to be able to do this and love what I do, because it isn't often that everybody gets to do that, right? So that just, I'm supposed to say, that just affirms that when you believe in what you do, things eventually happen. I think that message was for somebody. So I think that's all I have. Thank you again. Of course, if you would like to comment, information is comment down below how this applies to you, and listen to your other signs, for one of them may not mean much to you, but always listen to it at the end of the month or next month, because you guys always tell me that at the beginning it makes no sense, and then you come back and you go, oh my God, I can't believe it. So I wish you best of luck. I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care of yourself, and let's get going. Hello, beautiful Libras. This is going to be your messages. These are going to be your messages for the month of September 2018. I almost felt like I lost my voice for a moment. So for those of you who have a tendency to keep quiet, particularly when it comes to expressing your ideas and your emotions, I feel that it is important for you to no longer express your individuality. So that just kind of came right off the bat. For many of you, this is a key. And what I mean by this is that your need to express yourself unconditionally is the key to your success. So we'll talk about what that may mean for you. When I wrote Libra down, the word Libra, right away I actually heard abundance, resistance to abundance, and then prosperity. So it feels that for many of you, this is going to be revolving around the idea of abundance, and potentially how you consciously or otherwise resist receiving. And I actually see that in the cards. That was a few minutes later. So the fact that my message is corresponding to the cards, to me, is a sign for celebration, because things are aligning. So let's start off with the card that is symbolizing the nature of your month of September. You have a message called embracing transition. So essentially what this is saying here is that many of you are going through a transition period. A transition period is something that moves us in a certain direction from one set of circumstances to others, and as a result, we are learning about ourselves, and we are recognizing certain things and certain patterns and behaviors that no longer serve us, or that have been detracting us or deterring us from getting exactly what we want. For some of you, this is you transitioning from a situation in your life that is no longer. Now, this is something for some of you. You may have someone who's gone to the other side long time ago or some time ago, and you are needing to move on without them. This is not what's going to happen. This has already happened, and you are in a process of moving on. For others of you, this is transitioning from one set of circumstances to others, but for majority of you, it will be underlined with moving away from one set of belief systems to another. So the number 6 and 2 come to the number 8. So 8, as we know, is a very strong number. It's a number of abundance, which is what I heard. It is prosperity for me. It's strength. It's the strength card in the traditional tarot deck. So it is a number, a symbol to me that says you will gain a lot of strength by going through this transition, but also you probably had to be strong for quite some time, particularly over the next few months. For some of you, over the last few months or last few years, because you have been in this perpetual transition. And when I say perpetual, it feels like things are never ending, or things have kind of been not very stable or solid. This could be relationships, this could be how you feel about yourself fundamentally, or our physical life, as in abundance when it comes to money. Let's put it money. So you are in transitions, but I always say we're all in transitions, particularly with these planetary aspects that are happening around us. Most of us are going through some major transitions on a certain level in our life, and you are no different. But that's a good thing. With that comes choices and decisions, particularly if you are moving from one set of circumstances to now something else. You are needing to leave some things behind you and make different choices for you. So again, if you are leaving from a job situation, for example, you are now looking to move something to much more stable or something much more solid. Same if you're leaving a relationship or something of that nature, you are now moving towards something greater and something solid as far as your foundation. So as you are going through this transition, what are some of the things that you need to be aware of? Well, you have the card between two worlds. So again, this is the same as saying you are in a transition. You see this pelican between two worlds, signaling that you are in fact in transition. You are partway in the old way and partway in the new way, which can feel very confusing and very unstable at times. Your job, if you will, is to continually monitor your thoughts, particularly those that are not corresponding to what you want, and we'll talk about what that is, to make sure that you don't fuel anything that you don't want in your life. The number 3 is the number of expansion. So as you move or transition from one way of being to another way of being, your view of yourself and therefore the world is also going to expand. So for many of you, this is about keeping your eyes open keeping your eyes open? Let me just rephrase this. It's about you being mindful to what it is that you are wanting to accomplish for yourself, wanting to create for yourself, in order to be very clear on what your destination is. Why am I talking about this? Well, you have 3 of Pentacles, and this is a card of I want to say mutual understanding, but this is obviously very symbolic of money. So this could be work, this could be career. This could also be relationship, health. You are moving on to something much more stable and something much more solid. And for those of you who this is work related, you are moving away from one set of circumstances or transitioning over to another set of circumstances where you will feel much more fulfilled and much more feeling like you belong, like you're a part of a group where everybody's on the same page. There's a very solid foundation here. There's exchange of ideas, moving on to better, brighter, greater, whatever that is for those of you financially speaking. Looks like you are choosing to move on into a different work environment. For some of you, this may not have been a choice you have given yourself, but a choice that the universe bestowed upon you. And as a result, it is helping you shift into a different perspective, and therefore from the old to the new, and you are effectively in transition. Then I said, okay, what are some of the things that they need to focus on? You have 3 cards that popped up, and I felt I needed to keep all 3. For one, you have new life, you have come to the edge, and then you have a leg up in protection. What this is telling me, and I see this as a story, what this is telling me is that you are in fact moving towards something new. This new life card signifies that you are moving into something new. It's a set of new circumstances. You are ready to begin something new. As a result, you are going to be faced with certain things that may trigger some fears around you, particularly fears around abandonment, yes, abundance, and also prosperity. So clearly, if you are transitioning from one set of circumstances to other set of circumstances around work, that may trigger some insecurities around stability when it comes to finances. The come to the edge message to me symbolizes you needing to face your fears, you needing to let go of the pre-existing ideas about yourself, particularly those that keep you selling yourself short, in order to attract much more abundance to your life, which also speaks to prosperity. When I talk about abundance, it is not just financial, it is not just physical. Abundance is also feeling abundant in love relationship, attracting relationship, friendships, health that make you feel abundant inside. So don't think of this in terms of physical as far as money. Abundance is a feeling. It's a feeling of feeling like you've got everything that you need. Because you have, so it's asking you to face some of your fears. For some of you, it is facing your fears around asking for help. Now, the leg up card comes up in this protection position, and this is always to me symbolizing, or in this case, that many of you, as you are transitioning from one set of circumstances to another, you might need help of others. And I always say, if we were meant to be by ourselves, we would be born in some planet where there would be no other humans or beings, and you would be by yourself. The fact that we are here with others is because we need to experience relating to others in some way and form. So for you, it's important to learn how to ask for help. Why? Well, it seems some of you are coming from the place, emotionally speaking, of not enough. So this is poverty consciousness. What do I mean by this? Poverty consciousness is when your underlying belief system is rooted in lack. It is rooted in lack emotionally, spiritually, physically, and that will affect everything that you do and everything that you are, particularly in relationships. And because you are shifting gears, so to speak, because you are moving on from perhaps feeling less then and moving on to something much more solid, where your foundation is much more solid, much more grounded. And because you need to face your fears, it is important for you to recognize where are some of the areas in your life where you refuse to ask for help and the reason why. For some of you, this is around your obligations. Some of you may feel that you are responsible for other people, and you feel like the burden of that responsibility relies solely on your shoulders. And although that may be a physical fact, that you are, for example, let's say, you're a single parent and you have a young child and that child depends solely on you, then yes, in fact, that is your sole responsibility. But having the knowledge that your child is your responsibility for now versus having a fundamental belief system that everything is on your shoulders and always will be, those are two different things. And if you do have a belief that the world relies on you in order to make it work, you will have difficulty asking for help. It's just nature of how things work. And he's saying, explain to them why that would be difficult. Well, if you come from the belief of lack, that there is not enough money, not enough help, not enough other resources, and it's something you think about, but something that was somehow ingrained in you, or perhaps you were always communicated to that you are somehow not enough, you will have difficulty asking others for help because there is a part of you that feels it is not deserving of getting help from the outside. And that's the idea of lack. So for those of you who understand this message, it's important to notice if some of these things apply to you in your life because you're going through transition and because you're moving on from being one way to another, and because you are potentially moving to a much more solid foundation. You have to recognize, or it would be beneficial for you to recognize, some of the things inside of you that have been keeping you stuck or have been preventing you from attracting what you want. And because I heard abundance and resistance, for those of you who have difficulty or who are being challenged with financial matters or some other matters for that matter, where you feel there's not enough, notice what contradicting beliefs you have about prosperity. Now, these would not necessarily be conscious beliefs. They're certainly not logical for the most part. But if you look at your life and if you notice that you constantly struggle with money, for example, you might want to ask yourself, what part of me believes that abundance is not supposed to be mine, or anything around money, it's supposed to be struggle. Chances are you have developed a belief system about you and this thing called abundance that says that it's hard to get. And it is usually in our homes, in our upbringing, that we begin to believe these things about the world because it is what we are experiencing through our circumstances. Now, I want to make sure that I'm not just referring to finances. This could refer to anything. If you have grown up in a home where there was a lot of kids and not much attention was given to any child in particular, you may have grown up with the belief that there is not enough emotional abundance for you. And as a result, you may be attracting people to you that constantly prove you correct, and that is that you are always the one giving, but you are not necessarily the one receiving. Well, if your fundamental belief about relationship is that there is not enough, chances are you will be attracting that like a magnet to always prove you correct. But that is and when you notice that about you, please make sure you don't notice it from a point of blame. Rather, notice how this applies to you if in fact it does, and see it as a potential of something very powerful that can happen in the future. In other words, if you can create something unconsciously and prove it to yourself, you can certainly create something consciously and prove the corresponding end result. In other words, if you cultivate an idea about you and life that stems from the belief that world in fact is abundant, by observing the things that you have in your life and being consciously grateful for it, that energy will emit a certain frequency, which will then attract corresponding frequency or corresponding value into your life. So you might notice that by being grateful for what you are or for what you have, as whatever little you may have, it could be as simple as having good health. By being consciously aware of that abundance within you, you will start to attract abundance outside of you. And why am I keep saying this? Because you have a message here that says some of you may have difficulty receiving, and therefore you may have difficulty asking for help. And if you are one of those individuals, chances are you end up doing a lot of things for other people, but you are not expecting anything in result. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not for one moment saying that you should do things for people and only expect things in return. Absolutely not. Because we can give freely without expectations. But if your belief about life is that you expect not to get anything back in return ever, because it doesn't happen to you, then that's something very different than what I'm referring to. In other words, give without agenda. So for some of you, you might have unhealthy relationships. What do I mean by this? You might have a relationship where you are constantly catering to others, which is you always giving, but the underlying fuel is that by you giving to others, you receive the feeling of value towards yourself. Well, although that is a good thing to feel, when we rely on doing things for other people in order to make us feel good only, that's when it becomes a bit of a problem, because it puts us at a constant search for trying to get something from the outside that fundamentally sustains us. And I will always say it, everything comes back to ourselves. If we depend on others to feel valuable, then that becomes a bit of a crutch, and a crutch that often gives us less what we want. I'm not going to say give. It's a crutch that prevents us from receiving more than what we consciously want. You have the card of embracing family. So this is about allowing yourself to be loved and also loving others. For those of you who have, like my example, had difficulties in your younger years where you did not receive a lot of emotional stability, or there was not a lot of love for you, for whatever reason, that is how you experienced it. It's important for you to now learn how to receive. So surround yourself with people who are like-minded and let them give to you. And this is the same thing as, this card, leg up, and not asking for help or believing the world is on your shoulder, or feeling that for whatever reason, you're the one giving, but when it comes to receiving, it doesn't quite work the same way for you. So point is here, it is about learning how to receive by allowing others to love you, by allowing others to care for you, by allowing others to give to you freely. Chances are, if I'm speaking to you, you're one of those individuals that gives unconditionally, but when it comes to you receiving, you have a whole bunch of conditions around it. And this could be, some of the conditions you might have is that that, for example, it was communicated to you that life has to be only this way, and unless you have it this way, everything else is unimportant. I'm gonna redefine what I just said, because I don't feel that's clear. So what are some of the conditions you might have around receiving? You might feel that you're great with giving, but when it comes to your receiving from others, it makes you somehow feel guilty, or if somebody wants to give to you, it makes you feel funny inside. A great way to recognize this is notice when people pay you a compliment, notice if you cringe. If you cringe at the sound of somebody saying something nice to you, that is a dead giveaway indication that when it comes to receiving and when it comes to your own value, you need to you need to look at some things a little bit deeper, because the foundation of your belief is stemming from a place of lack. Now, we all have it to some extent. I believe the reason why we come here is to learn certain things from feeling lack in certain areas. But the moment we recognize it is the moment we can transition away from it, so that it no longer holds us back, particularly when we don't want to. And last but not least, you have Six of Pentacles in not protection, in reverse. And this is about holding back. And you may be holding back emotionally again, because you may feel that you're undeserving. Why would you hold emotionally if you're undeserving? If you hold yourself back emotionally and you're not allowing yourself to fully give to another, it's because you're holding yourself back for some reason. You hold yourself back for some reason, and chances are the reason is that you are afraid that if you do give yourself to somebody, something bad is going to happen. So again, notice those little intricacies in your foundation, and by looking at your patterns, and notice if that is true for you. Because once you examine and once it becomes very clear to you, then you can effectively move past it, because now you know what's going on and you're not banging your head against the wall when you're asking yourself, why am I not receiving? Why am I not receiving? I think we already talked about that. Is there anything else that I need to? Yes. So abundance and resistance. Notice what sort of resistance you have towards abundance. Examine your belief system about money. Examine your belief system about receiving freely. And maybe you were conditioned that, it's good for you to give, but if you receive, then you're being selfish, therefore don't receive but give. That may very well have been communicated to you. It happens to many people. So examine your beliefs and notice how these beliefs have played out in your life, and choose something different. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to go out on a limb saying it. I don't normally talk about the word God, but I'm going to use this in this analogy. God wants you to have everything. What you choose to give to yourself is up to you, because that is called free will. God doesn't have any judgments around money. We have judgments around money. Our judgments are good, bad, depending on how we grew up. So God wants you to be abundant. God wants you to be happy. God wants you to be whatever you want to be. So if there is limit in your life, it is not that God is limiting you. It is because you believe something about you that limits you from getting what you want. And I don't even know why I said this thing about God, but for some of you, you needed to hear it. And I think that's all I have. And then I see an anchor being unhooked. So looks like in the month of September and part of October, many of you will recognize some of these patterns, and you will consciously choose to minimize those patterns by being aware of your behaviors and monitoring your behaviors as you move on. And when we monitor our behaviors, we then have a choice to make a different choice, or we have a choice to make a different behavior, or we can choose to behave differently, which ultimately leads to a corresponding outcome. And I think that's all I have. I hope this made sense to you. If it makes no sense to you right now, listen to it towards the end of the month, perhaps in October. Of course, for private sessions, that information is down below for you. Thank you again. Let me know by commenting how this applies to you, if it does. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to do this for you. I wish you best of luck, and I will see you soon. Take care.